Well, ever since the Chief Minister of the state of Andhra Pradesh stated that the Laddu Prasadam of the famous Tirumala temple had been adulterated with animal fat, there's been a lot of discussion. Of course, it raised a lot of eyebrows because, in the first place, one might have thought, how can someone go to such an extent of attacking the very sanctity of such a famous and pious temple? Number two, if that were to be true, can a chief minister say that without going through a report given by the competent authority or by a team of experts? Because that hurts a lot of sentiments, crores of people across the world. And third, and the most important one was, where is this statement originating from? In legal parlance, there is a concept known as the cause basis. Cause basis is something that brings about a result, especially a person or thing that is the agent of bringing something about. Causality or causation is a relationship between an event and a second event, that is the effect, where the second event is understood as a consequence of the first. Now, was the chief minister uttering those words based on a complaint given to him by someone? Or he has taken up something on his own? He's got an allegation from somebody, he wants to investigate. But was this such a simple aspect to be handled in public? The question is not answered. Now, where exactly is this cause basis? What is the time fixed for such an investigation? When was the crime committed? Between which years? Whether the cow ghee alleged to have been adulterated was actually used in the prasadam? If that is the case, how could it be that it was rejected? Both cannot be true at the same time. Now, if this is true, that is, the adulteration was true, what is the point of reference in time and place? That's not being revealed by anybody, which raises a lot of doubts. Now, on September 20th, 2024, the executive officer said that there were 5 companies supplying cow ghee, and except one company, that is AR Dairy, others were all okay. Now, he doesn't explain why they were okay. Because he says that there is no testing laboratory. They had only some basics in that laboratory. They were unable to test it. But you claim that you don't have the facility. How are you certifying that they were okay? Then he goes on to say, because of the rate quoted, there were doubts raised. So this was the first time that they sent this sample to Gujarat. It is certainly not the first time. I will just tell you in course of time. On September 20th, when the executive officer says samples of 4 tanks were sent to outside labs, and on 6th July 2 samples, and on 12th July 2 samples, and the reports straight away concluded that animal fat was used because of certain parameters quoted in the report. Now, somewhere in the media, we have seen that this company by name AR Dairy, they have been quoted as having said that the name of that company was not reflected in the report sent by the lab from Gujarat. And they said they supplied only during June and July. Of course, this is also confirmed by the executive officer, which means that the AR dairy was not supplying cow ghee prior to this time, this period of time. Now, the EU does not say anything about whether the cow ghee supplied by this AR dairy was used in the prasadam or not. But that is the crux of the point. If that were to be true, then because testing failed in the TTD, by mistake they used this ghee in the preparation of the prasadam. That is not confirmed by him. Because if you say that, then you will be committing to something like you do have a mechanism of rejecting you, but you are not doing it. You will be accepting your failure. But it appears as though because of one sample which they suspected, they sent it to the national laboratory, got it tested, and found this report. So they went overboard and made an allegation. But then on 22nd September, he goes on to say that the five companies, including Alpha Milk Foods Private Limited, are still supplying ghee and there is no problem at present. There is no problem at present. Are you trying to say that you are sending all samples to Gujarat and then certifying that there is no problem, or just because you smell something, you got a good aroma and says that nothing is wrong, or you are sending the samples to the laboratory available in Tirumala itself and concluding that there is no problem? What are the stages? Certainly, there will be testing in the preliminary laboratory available with you, and then you go to Gujarat if you suspect something. That is something which you are trying to say. And on 23rd September, he promises that they are now going to establish a sensory testing lab in-house one. And he again reiterates that we don't have and we have never tested outside and we have perfect quality control here. What does this mean? You are going to have perfect quality control. You did not have it earlier. Then whom are you blaming? It is your own administration which is at fault. But we have seen a particular report which confirms that the TTD does have an in-house testing facility, which you keep on describing as a preliminary one. But according to this report, stated by an official and available on the TTD website during 2016, that the laboratory was quite an advanced one and it had all the facilities. Let's see this. Now, this is a special article written in the TTD news, the website managed by TTD, which says TTD houses state-of-art laboratory for biological tests of prasadam. And it says Dr. Sarmishta says TTD food labs to take up microbiological testing of water and oil soon. Testing of pulses, oils, and water on a day-to-day basis. Laddu tested in each tray for purity and weights. Samples, ghee, milk, and even tamarind, jaggery, chili, and turmeric powder checked before use. 1,05,238 samples checked in 2015, so on and so forth. And on 5th October 2016, the news is the health wing of TTD, one of the major wings with over 448 permanent staff, over 2,000 outsourcing staff who work round the clock to keep Tirumala clean and hygienic, so on and so forth. And again, apart from the regular cleaning and sanitation works, the department also handles yet another important functioning of testing food prasadam, water samples, and see that no adulteration takes place in the preparation of Anna Prasada and Laddu Prasada. But more importantly, the sophisticated laboratory. According to Dr. Sharmishta, very few know that there was a massive effort behind the design to keep all prasadam, drinking water, milk, Anna Prasadam,
Now, the TTD has actually acquired the BR meter, spectrophotometers, etc. long ago. We are not told whether they are being used or not being used, but they've got this equipment. It is possible that they have been checking samples, and if they found something fishy, they have decided to go to Gujarat. But let us see what this BR meter is all about. The butyrorefractometer or the BR meter reading is the index of the purity of foods like ghee, sweets, fats, and oils, which can be accurately measured with the help of butyrorefractometer or BR meter. There are several BR meters that are especially designed for accurate reading of composition of butter, ghee, and edible oil to check for purity. Now, the BR value for ghee is supposed to be at 40 degrees. An increase in the reading above this indicates that the ghee could be adulterated with vegetable oil or animal body fat. The BR reading will indicate what substance the ghee has been adulterated with by using the refractive index. Refractive index indicates the fundamental physical property by getting a reading of the composition or purity of the sample. So this is very important. One can see the parameters fixed by the TTD in their tender. They are all wonderful. They are much higher than the standards prescribed by mark itself, like moisture, percentage of the maximum percentage, milk fat, and the BR reading, etc. So, if a company is infringing upon this, well, as stated by the TTD news long ago, long ago, they do have a BR reading meter, and that determines whether the ghee is contaminated, adulterated, or not. If adulterated, with what it has been adulterated. Well, the officials have to explain when and where was the crime committed. That's the first and fundamental cause basis from where the whole thing has to take off. It is incorrect to state something in public and then create chaos. It lacks, it is a lack of statesmanship. That's a too big a word for today's politicians. Number two, if the mechanism has failed, let us say you've got the state of the art laboratory as stated by the official of GTD, what I've just shown you, then if that state of the art equipment has failed, it is the officials who have to be taken up. And if the tender conditions are not being fulfilled, then who is auditing all this? Number three, the first and fundamental question has to be answered. That is, whether the so called adulterated ghee was actually used in preparation of the prasadam or was it rejected after the report was published? That is the Gujarat National Laboratory. If that is the case, then what is the basis of making allegations and saying that the prasadam itself was contaminated? Nobody is saying that yes, the adulterated ghee was used in the prasadam. The EO doesn't say that. He simply goes on saying a lot of things except what is important for the devotees. That is in real bad taste. Well, but what raises the fundamental question is again whether we should do away with government control over the Hindu temples. It's not easy saying it, but there is a little bit of a history and moving to the political developments over the decades, we have failed to understand the importance of disconnecting the governments from the Hindu temples. Let us go a little bit into the history. Now, it was in 1925 that the British introduced the Madras Religious and Charitable Endowments Act that brought all religious establishments under government control. But this law resulted in vociferous opposition from Indian minorities and was redrafted to exclude Muslim, Christian, and Parsi places of worship. That same year, the Sikh Gurudwaras Act was passed so as to bring Sikh places of worship under a Sikh council. In effect, government control was only left in place on Hindu temples. After independence, one would have imagined that government would have found a way to ensure that Hindu temples were managed by the Hindu community. Instead, the Tamil Nadu government passed the Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowments Act in 1959. Hindu temples now came under a commissioner. This was followed by most southern state governments passing similar legislation. For example, while Tamil Nadu controls and manages 44,000 temples, Andhra Pradesh is not far behind with 33,000 temples. In fact, 15 states have laws that legalize this religious discrimination. The avowed intent of such legislation was to avoid mismanagement and misappropriation of assets by temple authorities. But then consider this. Recently, the Madras High Court had to ask the state government to explain how 47,000 acres of temple land had gone missing from records of the state. Management of temples by government is nothing short of institutionalized plunder. Now, these are all debatable, but then the question is about sanctity. Whether the average Hindu devotee is truly concerned about the sanctity of the temples. It's not just the average Hindu who goes to a temple. Those who are at the helm of affairs should also have the self discipline of understanding the true fundamental basics of sanctity and rituals in a temple. Now, those who have been governing the TTD, they should have understood that the basic fundamental prasadam should have been really understood properly. If they didn't understand that, why are they there? Are they there simply to sign documents, entertain VIPs for darshans and do that and all that business? That's not their business. The fundamental duty is to protect the sanctity of the temple and all rituals involved. If that is missing, there's no point in serving the TTD at all. The allegation is not just against one person. Well, the TTD, its net worth is around close to around 3 lakh crores. And come to imagine, why can't they have their own institutionalized production unit for cow ghee? Why can't they manufacture that? One would be pleased to buy cow ghee from TTD even at a premium. And secondly, they're complaining now that they don't have an in house modernized equipment, which, as I've just shown you, is not true. There is something wrong seriously inside TTD itself. Don't talk about those, the political parties. The idea is very simple. The determination to protect the sanctity is lacking. And so far as the Laddu is concerned, I think that it is a ramification rather than a reality. Because if you're telling that you're rejecting a sample, you got a doubt, then you must say that you have not used it for the prasad. If you have used it, you're admitting again that you don't have any mechanism, and this was going on since times immemorial. Well, the truth is that every year you've got two tenders for cow ghee, and you do have rejections. And those rejections are not happening just because somebody is smelling something. There is a laboratory doing the preliminary test, and that is not just preliminary. You do have a BR machine, which is straight away indicating whether there is animal fat or otherwise. Now that you have a tender wherein a very small amount was quoted, which was not pragmatic, it was not practical on part of a supplier to quote so low and supply cow ghee in tons. So they went ahead and got it tested. They might have got a report indicating that there was animal fat, but As admitted by the Yo himself, this one supplier had been blacklisted and rejected. And this man had supplied only during June and July, which means that the prasadam was not really made out of adulterated cow ghee. But then the approach to the entire issue on part of so many uh, powers that be is certainly in bad taste. Thank you.